Have you ever? I bumped my head into the dresser last night. Tell me something about you. I'm making this video on Sunday, and last night my family was like, why don't you go to church today? Tomorrow. I'm like, I go when I want to. And they're like, so how about tomorrow? And I'm like, I thought I'd come on here and talk about my relationship with God or divinity. There's nothing wrong with talking about it, actually. It just makes me nervous because my relationship with divinity looks a lot different than what I'm used to, and it looks a lot different than what I feel like a lot of people are used to. So sharing this feels almost, there are some parts of me that haven't, I guess because I haven't shared much about this aspect of my life with a lot of people very clearly, it feels scary to share it, because there are parts of it that can be considered, wrong from a perspective of certain religions or whatever. The thing is, religion has just felt like this fixed set of rules that kind of set you up for judgment, and anything else is an excuse as to why you can't be better than you are. It feels based in shame. It feels like everyone is a sinner, but if you become the perfect child, then you're finally worthy of the life you've been given. And when I started to realize this, I pulled away from God. In my eyes, how could a loving God desire my fear? But when pulling away didn't feel quite right, I started to ask myself what did. Because if there was anything I trusted about myself, it was my ability to have a deep sense of inner knowing about the world. I knew when something about the world was true to my soul. It was the reason I started pulling away to begin with. The more I asked myself what was right for me, the closer I felt to God. The more I honored it, the more divinity spoke to me. I wrote this. There were still moments of shame I came across because this still looked so different than that of what I had been taught. And in those moments, divinity held my hand and my heart. When I couldn't hear any more that way, divinity sent me this speaker named Diana. She spoke in a video, and it was the first time I felt seen and understood, like someone related more to my relationship in view of divinity.
Start it? I said no. He was like, okay, well then let me finish it. You ever do something and you actually know better than to do that thing, but you still do it anyways? I would do that thing, and then I would feel so embarrassed and humiliated after the fact, and most of the time I would run away and hide. He had to teach me something that was front-facing. A lot of times when we do something out of shame or guilt, our initial human response is to go hide. Deanna, I want you to come straight to me after you've done that thing. And I didn't understand that. What we're taught, even as children growing up, is you do something wrong. The thing to do right after that is not to go and tell your parents that you did that thing, The Lord said to me, he was like, Deanna, the only way that you're gonna overcome this is if you bring it to me directly after you do it. He said, you forget that I'm the one that started this relationship. I'm the one that called you, and you think that it's your job to finish it. When you fall to human weakness and then you run towards me in the space of forgiveness, know that I've already forgiven you, but there's an authority that I want you to be able to exercise and walk in. He said to me, why haven't you asked me to help you? He said, so many of my children think that it is their job to perform at this level of excellence, and that's not the case. All they have to do is say, I keep messing up here. I don't want to mess up in this way, but I need your help, and then watch what happens after that. Part of our relationship is surrender, and a lot of people look at that word as if it's a negative thing, but it's recognizing where you have a weakness, and in that weakness you become strong, not because your strength is the one that overcomes it, but because you recognize the one that possesses the strength to overcome it.
Not only did I now finally have someone to really relate to, the video that I found and the experience that she was talking about in the video directly paralleled what I was trying to overcome and what I was trying to release shame from, in the fact that I was trying to overcome it. It was a lesson I was struggling to embody without shame. And she was my confirmation. Her videos painted God in the light of a father who knows his child and only wants to have a relationship that will lead to the child having the best life they can, instead of what I was used to that felt like a father disciplining a child repeatedly to get them to fit one standard of being so that they can feel worthy of the life given to them. In my eyes, I just didn't feel right trying to love the Lord to escape punishment or to have pride over others who are considered more sinful, more evil. The pride of religion to me was built in shame rather than who one really was, what the Lord blessed us with. Even though they tell you, I feel like they tell you to have pride in your life. They tell you the things, but there's just this underlying sense of shaming into it. This like coercion of shame. Deanna talked about God as though God wanted her to have self-worth based on what is true about us in Him, not in what she has done right or done better, what He sees in her. Divinity showed me I was not alone in trusting the relationship I had with it, and gave me so much more confidence that I would allow myself to really show up in my relationship with God. It became even clearer that I wasn't speaking with some humongous entity outside myself, somehow fitting into the corner of my room. I was simply hearing a gentle truth within myself, closer than I'd ever realized. The voice had just gotten louder. I was simply hearing a gentle truth within myself that stood firmer than anything that came from fear, anger, or pain. That was God. I never understood that's what they meant when they say God lives in you. I thought they just meant God was there because He created it. You know, God was in it because God made it. But now I know divinity is everything around me and everything inside of me, and I only have to open myself up to listening. Even that I would get paranoid about, because I would think, what if I don't listen right? What if I miss it? What if I misinterpret? What if I screw up? She made a video on that the second I started wondering about all that, the second I caught myself up in confusion and frustration and shame and guilt.
To figure out a formula, or are you trying to know me? This particular morning I was reading in Exodus about Moses when the Lord calls him to go and save the children of Israel. Moses turned aside his attention to the burning bush, and that's when the Lord speaks. And so in my Deanna nature, I immediately started to figure out some formula. Okay, the Lord started to speak once He had His full attention. Does the Lord have my full attention? Well, what can I do to make sure that He has my full attention? Do I need to just sit in silence all day and not say anything? Do I need to fast for several weeks? And the Lord so gently said, Deanna, you're doing it again. I don't realize how when I am reading, I'm trying to figure out what I need to do so that the Lord can then do what He wants to do. He said, your focus is on Moses's attention turning to the burning bush. He said, but what about me knowing when it was time to speak to him? He knows His children well enough to where He's not going to speak if we're not in a place to listen. I asked myself, what was Moses doing the several years before the Lord decided to use him to save the Israelites? And the Lord checked me. He said, right. He said, I know when to speak. You place all of this emphasis on being in the right place, in the right time, in the right, checking all your boxes, making sure you're doing it the right way so that I can. He said, but what about me just knowing my children? He knows how to deliver it. He knows when my heart is soft enough to receive it or not. He knows if I'm too distracted to hear Him. It's a reminder to study the scripture and truly seek about who God is instead of trying to find formula. I'm even more open because you have the eyes of your Father. He said, you are under the gaze of the Almighty. He said, my gaze is an intentional focus that is constant. I began to feel like every area of my life was exposed, though no one knew what I was going through. In feeling exposed, there was so much shame attached. I was hyper aware of everything I did and knew that God also saw everything I did. And it became crippling because I couldn't live in the real world without thinking, well, what is He going to think of me if I did this? Or did I do this right? Or is He disappointed in me? Or did I do that wrong? It caused me to want to hide because of the pressure, this weight that I couldn't formulate into words. And this is what He said to me. You're coming to realize that you have my full attention. To you, it feels evasive. You feel like you're under a microscope, like I'm judging your every movement, like you can't get it right, like you keep messing up. He said, but really you're just coming into an awareness that the gaze of the Almighty, my eyes are fully on you. You have my full attention. And this is not a scary thing. It's actually very beautiful. It's been present your entire life. You're just now seeing and experiencing the weight of my gaze.
He said, it's not judgment. I admire every step you take when you don't have the answers. I don't label you by your doubt, but instead I see your heart wants more of me. I see when you wake up early to read or stay up late to spend time with me and end up nodding off. What you feel isn't pressure, it's intensity from my complete focus on you, on every area of your life, because I care. Don't be afraid. It isn't there to make you hide. It is there for you to become even more open because you have the eyes of your Father.
You were not meant to take this all on alone and guess what my intentions are and guess what I want for you and try to be that. This is a relationship where you get to be yourself with me. You only have to let me be myself with you, in a sense. That's what I took from it anyway. Through my personal relationship with Divinity, I finally understood how complex it all is, how deep it all goes. And that life isn't a series of tests meant to question you, but rather an experience through which you get to find out who you are. I learned that I don't have to lose myself trying to gain access to the truth of everyone. By finding the truth of myself in Divinity, I have all I By finding the truth of myself in Divinity, I have all I need to live the best life for me and for others. I wrote, I have never been this consistent with my beliefs and practices or desire to be as close to God. I have never brought as many things I feel I've done wrong to God like I have after allowing a much more loving relationship. Something within me knew it wouldn't take force or shame to know the love of Divinity, of creation. And honestly, how anyone reaches that voice is the right way in my eyes. When you view religions as these lines and these barriers to keep away from punishment, to keep closer to truth, there's a need to then deem other relations as wrong or false. In truth, we all have our own relationships with Divinity that can't be contained by a set of principles. Or at least that's what I believe. Through my relationship with Divinity, I've been gifted so much clarity, so much peace, so much love, so much confidence rooted in things I can't even understand. I thought confidence had to be rooted in things I could see, things I could witness. But all it took was Divinity. And my willingness to grow and open myself up to it. So while I do still find enjoyment in church when I do go, I can enjoy the lessons. I find I get a lot out of moments where I'm sitting and having time with God. I consider every moment, time with God, of course. I consider every experience a religious experience, a spiritual experience. I mean, I have my own way of praise and connection and really taking the time to sit deeply with God. And that, to me, feels like it does a lot more for my soul than church. Church is still a message, though. I still accept it. I come from Christianity, but I find church isn't necessarily conducive to how I enjoy my relationship with God, especially knowing the truth of the church and the truth of religion, where it all comes from. Or not that I know all that, but history does have its place. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. So happy Sunday. Thanks for listening, though. Share with your loved ones and share your thoughts with me. I'm happy to be here. I really am. It's feeling really good following up on just doing things when inspired. It's feeling really good to honor doing things when I'm inspired and to be able to honor discipline then, but to also be able to take a step away when I need time to allow messages to come to me, allow myself to have a break and relax, because there's other stuff going on in life. So, but I really am still happy to be back, and that makes me happy. I was scared I was gonna run away. Okay. Thanks for listening again. See you later.